Hey guys, it's Carla and I am here today in my kitchen for an excellent, if I must say so myself, weeknight meal that comes together extremely quickly in one skillet. I am making salt and sugar pork chops that get a little wilted greens in the same pan that they get seared in. I'm starting with thin cut pork ribs, which are great and they're easy to find and they cook really quickly. But the downside to cooking quickly is sometimes you can't get a beautiful caramelized crust. The rub that I put on them solves for that and then creates the foundation for the wilted greens, some onion. It ends up being salty and sweet and bitter and juicy and fatty and delicious. It's all of the things in 20 minutes. It is dead simple and you are gonna wanna make it. Normally for something like a grilling recipe or a dry rub recipe or some kind of low and slow situation, I would put a rub on, ideally the day before. This is not one of those times. This whole recipe is about kind of maxing out flavor in the shortest amount of time. These are 1-inch thick pork rib chops. This is the kind of cut that you're always gonna be able to find. These have the rib bone. You can buy the boneless ones if you want to, or if that's what they have. And I'm maxing out the surface area and I'm also shortening the cooking time by making them thinner. The bone obviously is gonna stay 1 inch thick, so I'm just concentrating on the loin part and the edge of the chop. This is gonna work with any kind of a chop or even a thin cut steak, like a blade steak or something like that. You could also do this with chicken thighs. And if you wanted to do this with fish, you could definitely use like any kind of quick cooking fish fillet. Obviously don't pound out the fish because it's quick cooking enough as it is. A lot of you guys ask about this meat mallet every time I use it. It is OXO and it is approximately 7,000 years old. So the ones that they sell probably look a little bit different, but it works great. So now they're flattened and I've got this salt and sugar mixture. This is 2 parts salt to 1 part sugar. That's the ratio. You want to just use all of the measured amount, which is following my standard like teaspoon per pound. The sugar is in here really to help with the browning. So they're not going to taste sweet because of it. It's not going to be anything like that, but it is really customary to have something sweet, regular sugar, brown sugar in lots of different spice rubs, and it's just going to help balance out the flavors, but more importantly, get you maximum browning in a short amount of time. And then for the edges, just whatever salt kind of bounced off the side. I'm just gonna let them sit for the amount of time it takes to prep my vegetables, which is about 10 minutes. And this is really typical in all of the recipes in the Stovetop Suppers chapter. Every minute of the recipe is getting you closer to the finish line, even though what these are gonna do right now is nothing. They're just gonna sit there while I do something else. For the veg component, you can really use anything that will quickly saute in the skillet that the chops were cooked in that you like. I am using Treviso, which is a type of chicory. It's very similar to radicchio. In fact, you can use radicchio instead. You can use escarole. You could use broccoli rabe. But if you're not like a bitter greens person, you could use any kind of vegetable that you like sauteed, like green beans would be fine. So without being like too fussy about it or anything, cutting these into like irregular pieces, 3 or 4 inches. You could probably do this with romaine, now that I'm thinking about it. Sauteed iceberg is really great also. Just throwing it out there. This is just an ordinary old yellow onion. You could use a red onion, a white onion, a couple of shallots, a leek, just something allium that is going to become sweet in the finished dish. A little bit caramelized and soft and not very long cooked. I intentionally cut them unevenly, like an unfinished hem on a garment, We're embracing imperfection. Salty, sweet, sweet, bitter, about to get caramelized and jammy, and then acidic and meaty. I'm using a 10-inch cast iron skillet. It's already preheated a little bit. And then a generous amount of oil. This is just neutral vegetable oil, 3 tablespoons. And the reason why you need that much fat is because they're thin, because they're quick cooking. So if there was just a like light skim coat of oil, you would end up with charring and dried bits. All right, they're gonna splatter a little bit because there is some moisture that has released from the salt and the sugar sitting on there. So tilt the pan away from you so the fat can kind of go that way and the splattering goes that way. And then right away, I'm gonna wanna press down on these. Again, making sure that the entire surface is making good contact with the pan, with the hot fat. I mean, if you've just come to the channel, you're hearing me say this for the first time. And if you've been with us for a while, then you know I'm consistent because I say this all the time. You need a good amount of fat. You need to be pressing down. You need heat conductivity and just need to have a little fun. So don't get mad at me on that first turn when it looks like there's no payoff. Even though these are quick cooking chops, I'm still doing the frequent turning method and gradually building up that crust. You want to do this gradually really because there's sugar in the salt rub and I don't want them to be down on one side for so long that all that happens is that the sugar burns. And I'll press down the first time I turn them, but after that, no more pressing because you're gonna press out your juices. But I'm gonna turn them back and forth every minute until they're pretty much medium cooked and the color that I'm looking for. This is the third and what I believe to be the final turn. See, dark brown, golden brown with a little bit of charring right in that spot. I like my chops to be a tiny bit pink. If you want your chop to be fully cooked through, go another minute longer. But my total cook time here is like 5 or 6 minutes. And they're coming out. My perfectly imperfect onion rings going in first. The action that's happening now is your concurrent action to resting your chops. Your chops have to rest no matter what. And I want to cook these until they're floppy and browned, kind of golden everywhere. Using the salt and pepper. If you wanted to embellish, I've left the recipe like very bare bones because I'd rather you guys at home find yourselves adding or riffing on a recipe rather than looking at one of my recipes and figuring out what you could take away. There's a little mustard that goes on the plate at the end, so you could throw a few mustard seeds into the pan right now. You could add some fennel seeds. You could throw some caraway seeds in here. It would be really nice. I have browned my onions. So now my greens, which are actually red, are going into the pan. If I piled them all in at once, it would be quite a struggle to get them to wilt because the guys on top would be just taking up so much room. I'll go a handful at a time and kind of toss them as they go until you can fit more in. And just like have a look at what is happening with the pork chops while they're sitting. All of these like delightful juices are coming out and they look really perfect. What I'm looking for at the end is a nice wilted leaf, but with still a little bit of bite in the rib. And these are perfect. A little bit toothsome, but mellowed. Still have the bitterness. So at this point, I'm going to kill the heat. I'm using a fresh lemon. If you didn't have citrus, sherry vinegar, white wine vinegar, cider vinegar, rice vinegar would all be really, really great. So you've got sour, salty, bitter, and umami. And now to bring that sweetness to it and kind of amp up the caramelization of the onion, this is just honey, and the honey will liquefy and melt. This is done. I'm gonna slide it over. You don't have to slice your chop for your friend, but I like to. So I have the rib bone. I'm gonna put the knife as close to that rib bone as possible and just almost like using it for leverage, pushing against that rib bone so that you get as much meat off as possible. And then you just have to like turn the corner down here and cut away. Obviously, save the rib bone. We will gnaw on those. I'm gonna slice this chop against a grain. They're totally juicy, but I could have cooked them just a tiny bit less than I did, for me. The FDA is gonna tell you to cook them to like 165 or something. They have to tell you that, right? But like, go to their house and see how they cook their pork chops. Yum, yum delish. With these guys kind of shingled, add a little bit of flaky salt just to get the inside of the slices. So all of these delicious juices we don't want to waste. I'm gonna add that to the veg mixture. It's like a delicious, warm, wilted salad. Sweet and saucy and savory, and bittersweet and lemony and honey-ish. Well, it is a bittersweet symphony, isn't it? A bittersweet symphony of swine.
'Cause it's a bittersweet symphony of swine. Trying to eat this meat, but then it takes off 'cause pigs fly.
Little ribby tops. I don't know, great for a weeknight, but like nice enough for date night. A bittersweet symphony of date night. Come on. That would easily feed 3 people.
It could be like date night for a throuple.
Date night for the throuple. My husband recently was like, you don't even know what a throuple is. We weren't talking about like getting into one, but he was like talking about throuples. He was like, you don't even know what a throuple is. And I was like, did you just find out what a throuple is? Because I've known about it. Meanwhile, 2 chops for 3, you know what that means. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. This was 2 pork chops. Do you think that feeds 2 people or 3 people?
3.
Okay, second question. Do you know what a throuple is?
A cut of meat? Pork? What's so funny?
Nailed it. Why does your hand look like that?
I put plaster on it.
Oh, cool.
Plaster cast. Why? What's so funny about this?
The way you cut it, it is a throuple.
Yeah.
Do you want some pork chop?
Yes.
Are you gonna eat the greens or are you gonna be like,
I'll eat some greens.
okay. What do you think this is? A place where another person doesn't lemon your plate for you? I'll just have a nubbin. I forgot an important part.
No, I don't.
You don't want mustard? I think it's good with a little mustard. Can I try it for myself? Okay. Cause, oh, all right.
The acidity of the mustard paired with the fatness of pork made a great bite. Later.
You heard it here first. The acidity of the mustard paired with the fattiness of the pork made for the perfect bite.